The 7 Years' War was a war centered around the conquest for the new discovered land of North America. The British and the French were pitted against each other to dominate this newfound land. And to prove which of the two was the stronger nation, the film The Last of the Mohicans perfectly depicts the war strategy shown by both sides as well as the Aboriginals who played a significant part in the conquest. The 7 Years' War is depicted amazingly in The Last of the Mohicans, and the movie proves to show the hardships the Aboriginals endured during this period of time. The film takes on a new visual approach to the Aboriginals and shows them in a more sympathetic view compared to the films of the past. The previous era of film that depicted the Aboriginals in a negative manner. The Siege of Fort William Henry. The fort rested on Lake George. The walls were approximately 30 feet thick and consisted of timber. Though formidable, the fort walls were not strong enough to withstand artillery. The fort had a large square design with bastions on the corner. The northern wall faced the lake. The other three sides were protected by a dry moat. The siege took place 1757 between the dates of August 3rd and 9th. British commander Lieutenant Colonel George Monro had around 2,500 men, where the French and Aboriginals had around 8,000 men. Montcalm had been planning to obtain Fort William Henry. After obtaining the knowledge from his intelligence network, they had told him to go to Louisbourg, but after realizing the loss of Fort William Henry would hurt the British a lot and leave them weak on the frontier, he had started assembling his men. His work was aided by Vaudreuil, who was able to recruit 1,800 Aboriginals. After assembling his 8,000 troops at Fort Carillon, he had begun to head for Fort William Henry. As he arrived, he demanded General Monro surrender. Monro denied this, and that's when the first assault happened. The British retaliated, but their efforts were quite ineffective. On the days of the 6th and 7th of August, the French were able to open significant gaps between them and the fort. On the 7th of August, Montcalm ordered again for the surrender, but they refused. After another day of bombardment, the fort's defenses were finally collapsed. Monro waved the white flag on August the 9th, 1757. The tactical background of the 7 Years' War. For the first 4 years of the war, the French were winning. They had formed an alliance with the Aboriginals who had helped them significantly with their campaign to conquer the new land. Superior land forces was the reason why they were winning the war in the beginning. In the beginning, the British lacked land forces at the time. They had a large naval army, but lacked the ground control. The Troupe de la Marine, the French militia, fought with the Aboriginals along the eastern coast, moving their way down the United States. They had fought both guerrilla warfare tactics as well as inline formation, fighting as a unit. They had fought both guerrilla warfare tactics as well as inline formation as a unit, and commanded by a high-ranking officer. Montcalm was one of the French leaders who liked to fight traditionally with formation and instructions by superiors. Now, Vaudreuil liked to fight guerrilla warfare, a style of man-to-man combat introduced to them by the Aboriginals. They had a disagreement on which fighting style should be used and what was more efficient during the conquest. Montcalm was the one who ended up getting their way, and that's how the majority of French soldiers fought. The British fought in line formations and as a unit that was directed by a high-ranking officer. The British liked their formation and the style of orderly fashion, but this tactic did not always work as the French and Aboriginals were starting to use man-to-man guerrilla warfare style tactics. The British were also among the first to use biological warfare, as General Amherst had introduced smallpox to the Aboriginals, wiping them out. Although not shown, the British had a large naval army, and that is why they ended up winning the war. This was because their ability to cut off the supplies from France to Canada. Alright. The British liked their traditional style of formation fighting, but it did not always prove effective. The French also practiced the traditional style, but were introduced to the guerrilla warfare style of man-to-man fighting by the Aboriginals. The French were winning the first 4 years of the war, even though they had lacking numbers. They were winning because of their alliance with the Aboriginals and their ability to cover the ground. Whereas the British had a large naval army which helped them eventually win the war with their ability to rule the waterways of the newfound land, cutting off the imports from France. Something that the last era of film did was they misrepresented the entire Aboriginal culture and made them seem like the bad guys. Now, this is the complete opposite of what is true to history. The British and the French came and invaded their land, just like the Spanish Inquisition. For the centuries, the Aboriginals had to protect their land from intruders from the east. The Aboriginals lived passive lives with the odd conflict with other native tribes raiding their homes or stealing their horses. But they had seen nothing like this kind of conflict before. People fighting over land. Something Aboriginals never worried about because they were always on the move. The land was everyone's, and it was never divided between people. The first appearance of Aboriginals in film first started off in the 1920s. They started off positively with sympathy for Aboriginals, showing their struggles for food and conflict between other tribes. The next era, and the next depiction of Aboriginals, took a dark turn in the early 1930s, where Aboriginals were depicted as these savages and American pride took over, where filmmakers thought the viewer should feel prideful of their American heritage, and that Aboriginals were just pawns in their game for the conquest of the new land. All Indians in that era were the same. They all looked like Plains Indians with the big headdresses. An example of this dark era is the movie Stagecoach. Now the era we have come to is the revisionist era, where we have come again to a more sympathetic view of the Aboriginals. We now show the true hardships they have endured with the loss of their lands and their source for food that were stolen by the new settlers. Throughout the film, we are able to grasp a true understanding of the time period that is depicted throughout the film, The Last of the Mohicans. We get a view of what the French and British military tactics were like, as well as how the French were able to siege Fort William Henry. And finally, we get a representation of how the film has shown the Aboriginals in a more positive revisionism light compared to the mistreatment they got in the previous eras of film. Guerrilla warfare was a style of man-to-man combat. It was a very brutal, violent, anything-goes combat. Nothing was really organized. It was like a drive-by style of fighting. The Aboriginals were the ones who introduced the newcomers to their land of this new style of fighting. The Aboriginals showed this brutal style of combat by the many ambushes and the scalpings they had performed on the ones who had done them wrong. It was the Aboriginals who decided to side with the French in the 7 Years' War and had shown them the new style of combat. They worked with the French militia, the Troupes de la Marine, and the two were able to scatter the British soldiers they encountered with their hit-and-run style of combat.
Wow, kids! Today we're at Daniel Day-Lewis's house to do an interview for The Last of the Mohicans. Hey! Hey there, it's Steve Universe II here, and we're here to record a little. Me and my film crew are here to record a little short featurette video on your son Daniel here. We're here to record a little featurette on Daniel. Okay? Daddy, your friends are here. Danny, baby, we'd like to film a little short featurette for your new film, The Last of the Mohicans.
Oh, there's no Daniel here. I'm Miles Turner. I'm a 40-year-old man living in my mom's basement eating macaroni.
Not this again. Okay, dude, listen. Okay, I know you're.
Yo, I'm trying to.
I'm trying to get ready for my character.
I'm trying to get ready for my character.
Listen, man. Okay, we're getting paid a big Hollywood bucks for this, baby. We're gonna make millions. We're gonna be a star, baby. Get back and come. Just be Daniel for 2 seconds, okay?
All right.
Danny, baby, tell me how you prepared for the role.
As I prepared to get into this role, I met up with a group of Aboriginals who had shown me how their ancestors dealt battle in this gruesome war. In the scene of the first ambush, where my co-star Wes Study betrays the British on the road to Fort William Henry, you see the pure damage that is done by the Huron and how effective it really was. And how easily they were able to disorganize the British troops. The scalping of soldiers is very accurate to their fighting style. The Aboriginals would keep them as trophies to show they are warriors. This hit and run style of fighting was really effective, and I myself had practiced and studied for months on end to figure out this brutal style fighting style.
Danny, baby, tell me, how do you think The Last of the Mohicans is a revisionist film?
Well, I believe we did a good job showing the true side of the Aboriginals in the film. I think we were able to capture the true side of them that the previous era of film missed. In the scene where myself and my 2 co-stars sacrificed the deer we had caught in the forest for our meal is something that is true to the Aboriginals. They believe that all things have soul and all things are there for a reason. I learned this as I studied for the role. What I had also learned is that the elders of the tribes always have the final say, no matter what. They are wise people, and they know what will be the best for the tribe. They were always understanding people. You see this as myself, Madeline, Stephen, and Jody are brought in front of the Huron tribe leader who decides what will be best to do with us. Another thing the film does well, I believe, is show the hurt that the Huron felt. Although Wes may come off as aggressive in the film as he wants to kill Colonel Monroe a lot, the power his character has due to the loss of his family is moving, and that is why I believe it is also important that we had that in the movie to show that family means a lot to the Aboriginal and they valued their loved ones significantly.
Oh, Danny, baby, you really seem like the kind of guy that I really like to get to know here, you know? Like, have a little bit of a bull session. You're gonna be a star, baby. I can already tell. You're gonna make millions. You're gonna be a star, baby. What do you say about lighting up one of these Hollywood cigars, huh? No.
Here in my garage, just bought this new Lamborghini. Fun to drive up here in the Hollywood Hills. But you know what I like a lot more than materialistic things? Knowledge. In fact, I'm a lot more proud of these 7 new bookshelves that I had installed. The whole 2,000 new books that I bought. It's like a billionaire Warren Buffett says. The more you learn, the more you earn. The real reason I keep this Lamborghini here is that it's a reminder that dreams are still possible, because it wasn't that long ago that I was in a little town across the country, sleeping on a couch in a mobile home with only $47 in my bank account. I didn't have a college degree, I had no opportunities. But you know what? Something happened that changed my life. Now, I'm gonna tell you the secret so that you can buy a Lamborghini too. You wanna know what it is? Drop out of college. Listen, we've been lied to. There is something being perpetrated right underneath the surface.
Yeah, that's all, folks. Baby, I'm talking about that triple.
Okay, I gotta come up and you wanna see my stuff?
Yeah.
I see my stuff, and then you're like, we're here to talk to Dan. Wait. Stop!